Welcome to Connections. I'm your host, April Healy, and today I'm welcoming Martha Blanchard. She's our first year staff, and you were on third year staff for a couple years with Blake Healy, my husband,
Blake
right?
Healy, yes.
So welcome, Martha. I'm
Thank
so glad you're here with us.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I want to just know all about you. So let's start with just who are you? Like, give us some facts about who you are.
I've been married for almost 30 years, have two grown children. I grew up in Texas, and I love Texas. Came to BASSM with my husband several years ago, and we went through all 3 years of the school, and it changed my life.
All right, so how did you get to Bethel?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
So we were from Texas and my husband moved to Alabama so we could help plant a church there, an interracial church.
Okay.
And we've always been looking for more. My husband Joseph was online looking at just whoever was really going after revival and just the more of God. And he was watching Bill Johnson, like lots and lots of people do.
Yeah.
And he decided, even though we've been in full-time ministry since 91, he decided he should go to the ministry school here in Atlanta. So we actually moved to the Atlanta area to go to the Bethel Atlanta School of Supernatural Ministry.
Wow. Did you decide to go through it with him, or were you following in his footsteps?
No, I thought it was fine for him to go.
Okay.
And we moved here because we figured he'd be lonely if he went by himself.
Okay, got it.
To Atlanta.
Right.
And then Lindy Hale kind of talked me into just applying at the last minute, and I got in, and I'm so glad.
I'm so glad too.
It has changed so much of the way I see God and the way I see church and the way I see myself and my family and the world around me, and I'm really thankful that I made that decision. It's been life-changing.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you go through the school the same year that your husband went through?
We did. We both went through first, second, and third year together.
I'm glad you did, because now you're on staff with me.
It's amazing. With you.
Yay. Okay, so tell us about like the worldview changes that the school had on you, like the impact.
It really had a big impact. Honestly, I'd never really heard about a lot of the things that I heard first year. So going through first year, I kind of looked at some of the things they were teaching, like, does anybody really believe that? I mean, the idea that God is good, I'd heard about a lot. I just hadn't really been around a lot of people that actually believed it. Okay. And the ideas that, healing is for everyone, and prophecy, the supernatural, obviously it's in the Bible, so it's true. But I'd never really actually been around people that believed that it was for now and not for heaven, and it was for today and the earth and for anyone. Wow. And that was a pretty big revelation. Not that I didn't believe it, because we were in charismatic churches, evangelical churches, we've been in a lot of different churches. Yeah. And in every church we've been in, there are wonderful, kind, loving people. There's something great about every denomination, every church we've been in. But just to see people that were like, I just want the presence of God. I believe that God is good. And for me to believe that God is good, it seemed so simple, but it was such a big deal to actually be around somebody else, a lot of somebody else's that saw God that way instead of just, I've always served him. I've always done what I'm supposed to do. Because you're supposed to. And being in full-time ministry for, 20-something years before we showed up, it's not like we weren't trying to do everything God wanted us to do. But I was in more of a place like, I've got to do this because this is what God requires. And if I don't, then I'm going to miss it, or God's not going to be happy somehow. Okay. But to come from a place like, God just wants me to be me, and he's good, and he cares about me no matter what. Whether I do this or don't do this, he cares about me the same. Yeah. And to find people that really believed it and lived it and not just preached it was a pretty big deal. And that's why it was really life-changing for me.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you homeschooled your boys, right?
Yes, I did, all the way through.
That's amazing. Like from 5 years old on.
Yes, yeah. And actually a little earlier, because one of them started to read before I tried to make him read. So it's just that way.
Brilliant.
But I always wanted to homeschool before I was even married. I was around some families that homeschooled, and I really admired what their children were like. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. Plus, I was a public school teacher. Okay. And I was like, not sure. I think I can do this. I think I can homeschool my kids.
So tell me, like, how did that, I mean, you said how it started in you, but what, if you were going to talk to other parents and tell them what your loves about homeschool or the benefits of it, like, I guess give us everything you know about homeschooling and why you love it.
Do you have a couple hours?
A couple hours, go.
I think the main thing is I loved building that connection with my kids. I love learning. And so I felt like I got to learn a lot of things as we went along. I felt like that made everything kind of a learning experience. So instead of like, you go off and do this and come back and maybe I'll hear about it. Right. We got to learn it together. So it was challenging just because you really realize a lot about your character.
Right.
Not just theirs.
How much patience you have.
Or don't.
Right.
Yeah, all those things, and you're kind of always on.
Yeah, always.
And that's also something where you just have to lean on the Lord and decide that you're going to be a loving person.
Right.
Yeah.
Through the always being on part.
But I love learning, and it was just so much fun to learn together and to read books together and see them grow. Yeah. And see them grow into who they've become. I really like my kids. They're really amazing. They're grown-ups now.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see what that looks like on the other side.
Yeah. How did you foster them having an outlet, like a social outlet, while you were homeschooling?
We always did something, at least once or twice a week. We would have play groups, but we also did like enrichment classes or different things where I would teach some kids and those moms would teach my kids. And so we always had something from the very beginning. Okay. Where we had groups and families that we did lots of stuff together, where we shared learning and shared what we were good at with their kids, and they shared what they were good at with awesome. My kids. And that really made a difference. So we didn't really stay home as a homeschoolers that much.
Oh, you did a lot of out and about
We
stuff.
did lots of out and about stuff.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that made a difference too, because it made learning real instead of like, here, sit at the table, read this book, fill out this worksheet. That was kind of boring. Yeah. I didn't like that kind of a school.
So what kind did you have? Did you do a ton of field trips as well, or hands-on, or kind of a mix of everything?
It was kind of a mix, but I had 2 kids, so you can't really do the same thing with each one. Okay. Every person is unique, and every person has a different learning style. And the way I did something with my older one, who was really he just learned very differently from my younger one. And my younger one had some learning challenges that we were able to compensate for, and it was no big deal because we always had time.
Okay, well that's awesome. So how do you feel like it's helped your relationship with your kids now that they're older, like your connection?
I think that I feel like I've gotten to see the way they've grown all along.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
I've gotten to be able to direct some of that growth. Okay. And at the same time, I feel like there's areas where I maybe would have given them a little more say in what that direction is. Okay. So looking back is always different than when you're in the middle of it. I did everything I knew to do well. I did everything I knew to do right. I really valued studying the Bible and focusing on having them be a part of the ministry. We were in youth ministry, so they went everywhere with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
I always thought they were part of the youth group until we went on some overnight trip. We're like, you can't go. And they're like, why not? I'm a youth group kid too. Like, you're 5.
Right.
So we just being able to be a part and travel and let them be a part of all the things we were doing in ministry too, I think that's something I really value.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Martha. Thanks for joining us.
You're
Thanks for being
welcome.
here and telling us all about you and your family
You
and
bet.
homeschooling and your life changes with Bethel Atlanta School of Supernatural Ministry, or BASSM as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And we just love you. I love that you're a part of it. I love that you're here. I love
Thanks,
that you're
April.
a part of my life and
a
a part
blessing.
of our school. And guys, thanks so much for joining us. This was such a fun time with Martha. We just absolutely love, 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 and adore her. And you guys come back for the next one.